like to call the regularly scheduled Planning Commission meeting to order here on June the 12th. If we could all rise, and I will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Now is the time that if you want to speak on an agenda item not before us here at the Planning Commission, you have your chance to speak for 3 minutes, and there's no speaker cards. All right. We'll go to our consent calendar.
Motion to approve the consent calendar.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, we'll hit our buttons. All right, it passes 4-1. Commissioner Brower, I think you were...
I abstained because I wasn't here for the last...
Yep. Great, so it takes us to the public hearing, and I think we'd like to go to item number 7 first. So, item number 7, Plan Sign Program 0514-4475, Applied Medical Freeway Oriented Wall Sign.
Thank you. Ron Santos has a brief report this evening.
Good evening, Chairman Hamilton and members of the Planning Commission. This item is a request for a minor plan sign program to permit a single freeway-oriented business logo wall sign on the facade of an elevated equipment platform that extends between two existing industrial buildings. The buildings are located at the northerly end of Windrow Drive, just east of Lake Forest Drive and north of Rancho Parkway, and adjacent to the 241 toll road. The equipment platform is part of a larger project approved by the Planning Commission back in February of 2013 that is currently under construction and on track to be completed in August of this year. The proposed sign is the business logo of Applied Medical, which is a manufacturer of surgical equipment that owns and occupies both of the buildings. The sign is approximately 49 square feet, triangular in shape, made of painted aluminum, and would be backlit with halo-style lighting as depicted on page 1 of your staff report. In addition to the equipment platform sign, each of the two buildings will also display a previously approved business ID sign on the far corner of each building relative to the center or the platform, and also facing the toll road. The signs are permitted pursuant to a planned sign program that was approved by the city in 1997. As discussed in the staff report, the city's sign code requires a planned sign program for any sign facing a freeway, or in this case a toll road, in order to ensure that the signs will not negatively impact the aesthetics of the property or be excessively prominent or distracting to drivers. In this instance, the proposed sign would be set back approximately 125 feet from the travel lanes of the toll road, and at 49 square feet is substantially smaller than the 86 square feet maximum sign area allowed by the city's sign code. And that 86 square feet is based on the width of the bridge or equipment platform, which is also 86 feet. Additionally, the proposed sign features a single muted color with no text or excessively bright lighting or other features with the potential to distract drivers. Pertinent to this point, the sign plans were also reviewed by Caltrans, which had no objections to the project. In terms of aesthetics, the sign will be centered on the platform's facade. It will be framed by existing features of the structure, and will be balanced in terms of its size and proportions relative to the spacing around the sign and its arrangement relative to the existing signs on the building. On this basis, and as further detailed in the staff report and in the draft resolution, staff is recommending approval of the plan and sign program as proposed. That concludes staff's presentation, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have. I just note also that the applicant is in attendance tonight as well.
Thank you. Any questions from the commission to staff? All right, we are now opening. Yeah, I'm going to open first. So we'll open the public hearing. And I see we have a speaker card, the applicant. I believe it's Tony. We'll just call you Tony. I'm sorry, I can't read the.
It's my handwriting, no worries.
Either my eyes or something. Okay.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Tony Debaghi. I'm the architect for this project and for the sign. And I'm here to answer any questions that you might have tonight.
I had one question. The vertical white lines that are underneath the sign, what are those? Is that an aluminum feature or what?
They are LED lights.
Those are LED lights?
Yeah. And they're dimmable.
They're dimmable. So that's technically part of the sign, or?
No, it's part of the bridge, the
bridge.
building itself, yes.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
All right, I guess that's it
All right, great.
for questions. Is there anyone else who wants to speak on this agenda item?
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you for speaking. All right, I guess we'll bring it back to the commission for any other questions or for comments.
I don't have any objection to this sign. I think it will be a nice addition to their building, especially the addition that they're doing there, and I think the sign with the LED lighting will probably be look very nice from the freeway. It will probably dress up the look of the city going along the 241 there.
Ditto that. Anyone else? Do I have a motion on this item?
Make a motion to approve the resolution as presented. A second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor? The motion passes unanimously. Congratulations. All right, now we're going to go back to agenda item number 4, appeal of the Director of Development Services denial of a determination of public convenience for or necessity for 99 only store number 198 located at 23829 El Toro Road. Ms. Ackerman, do we have a staff report?
Before we get started this evening, Chairman, on this particular item, at this time, both myself, this was actually an appeal of a decision made by the Director of Development Services, so I will be stepping away from our dais here, and Matthew Richardson, our Assistant City Attorney, will also be stepping down and will be replaced by Matt Silver.
Just briefly, this is, as you mentioned, the appeal of the Director of Development Services decision on a determination of public convenience and necessity for the 99-cent only store on El Toro Road. We have prepared a resolution based on the recommended actions from the last meeting, as explained in the staff report. We don't have any other further report for you this time.
Great. Any questions from the commission to staff? Commissioner Brower.
Thank you. I am, just from a logistics standpoint, am I correct in my understanding that we can still essentially revisit? I mean, if the vote was to say we're not comfortable with the language of the resolution, we could still come out with a different outcome tonight than we did last time? Is that legally sound, or is that not correct?
Again, it's good to be with you again, Matt. So good to see you again. If I'm understanding you right, if the commission wishes to revisit its decision on the substantive issues, in other words, reconsider its decision, then the commission could and would need to, someone from actually the 3 approving side last time would need to make a motion to reconsider, which would need then to be seconded and pass in the normal way that a motion would need to pass.
Thank you for clarifying.
And Mr. Chair, if I may, I just have one clarification point regarding the minutes. May I?
Yes, sure.
Okay. I reviewed the minutes that were adopted at the last meeting, and those minutes were the minutes from the meeting on May 8th, 2014, at which the 2 items regarding the PCNs were first considered. And I've compared that to the my review of the actual video from both items, including the subsequent motion to reconsider. The minutes, in my opinion, do not accurately reflect the motions that were made. The motions clearly stated that the 2 items were to be continued to tonight, hence us here tonight. However, the minutes do not contain that language. I would propose and suggest to the commission that we correct those minutes and do so by, if the chair pleases, directing staff to agendize for the next available meeting an item to consider the amendment of the May 8th, 2014 minutes to have them correctly reflect the hearing from May 8th, 2014.
So agreed.
Thank you. I'll note that.
Okay. Can I have a little clarification? That action that you just stated and the first action, if we wanted to reconsider it, would take a request from one of the 3 who voted in the affirmative the last time. Are those independent of each other, or does one supersede each other, or are both needed? I mean, where are we on that?
They're actually 2 separate items.
Okay.
One being the substantive issue, one being the minutes. I think, however, Commissioner Verplank, you raised a very good point. I apologize for that. With respect to the minutes, if you wish to, I think it's just an amendment. Really, it's an amendment simply to correct what was a typographical error in the minutes. Nonetheless, it probably would make sense. I think you could, if you liked, make a motion to reconsider those minutes. However, I think it is within the chairman's prerogative to direct staff to simply agendize it for that consideration. And at the next available meeting, you would then consider whether to amend those minutes or not. So I think the chairman's prerogative, which he's already directed, I think that's sufficient.
All right. Thank you.
Any other questions from the commission staff? Go ahead. Commissioner Fuentes.
So I have questions for staff. In looking over the resolution, I'm wondering if you can clarify the term undue concentration.
Yes, thank you, Chairman and members of the Commission. Undue concentration is a term that comes directly out of the ABC Act, the state law that governs the licensing for alcoholic beverages. Undue concentration occurs in one of 2 ways. When, and I'm going to read it directly from the Act, I have it here in front of me, when the premises are located in a crime reporting district with a 20% greater number of reported crimes than the average number of reported crimes as determined from all crime reporting districts within the jurisdiction of the law enforcement agency. That's number 1, so a higher than the average crime area. Number 2, issue of retail licenses to population census tract in which the premises are located exceeds the permitted ratio of off-sale retail licenses to population in the county in which the applicant's premises are located. ABC publishes a list of all census tracts in the state and the number of off-sale and on-sale licenses allowed for each tract each year. And so the Business and Profession Code provides exceptions under which the ABC may issue a license even when there is undue concentration, and that is the public convenience or necessity process that we're dealing with here.
Does the ABC use the term oversaturation when defining the state of Lake Forest current liquor licenses?
I haven't seen that in the Act. Matt, have you looked in the ABC Act and found that terminology?
I have not seen the term oversaturation used in the Act.
Well, in your opinion, Cheryl, why do you think that the ABC allows cities to recommend the state issue a PCRN? Is it purposely to oversaturate, or is it basically a means for local control to balance out the distribution so that those tracts that have no liquor licenses can serve the community in a commercial retail market area?
The Act is silent on why it includes that provision, but I think we can infer that it is to allow some local input.
What percentage of Lake Forest liquor licenses are used in restaurants? Do you know that offhand?
Restaurants. What percentage specifically? 71% of the liquor licenses in Lake Forest are.
And we don't regulate
on
those?
They are not subject to a PCRN.
Okay. So that seems kind of high. Do you know how that compares to other cities in South County?
Of the other cities that I have here in front of me, all but 2 have more on-sale or restaurant licenses than off-sale. And so in terms of kind of a ranking, we're tied for 3rd. So the higher than Lake Forest would be Laguna Beach with 81% on sale, and San Juan Capistrano with 74% on sale. And as I said, we're at 70%.
So those 2 touristy towns are higher. Do you have an opinion why Lake Forest might come in almost as high as some tourist towns in our South County area?
Well, Lake Forest does obviously have a lot of restaurants. There's some unique maybe social and land use characteristics here. We have a variety of commercial centers. So we have large commercial centers like the Foothill Ranch Town Center, and then smaller centers, maybe at like Ridge Mountain Muirlands, where there can be a variety of sizes of restaurants, not all chain restaurants. We have a population that, maybe there's a social or socioeconomic characteristic that people eat out more. One thing that I think is kind of unique about Lake Forest is our large daytime population. The city has over 35,000 jobs. So the people that are here during the day can support restaurants for lunch and dinner and things that may not be possible with just the resident or overnight population.
Okay.
A couple of possibilities.
So let's back out just the number of off-sale licenses. Do you have an idea what is the per capita ratio of this type of license compared to our population?
Off-sale?
Off-sale.
I believe it's 1 per 1,791.
Ooh,
Off-sale only.
I hope they don't all go at the same time. That's all I have for you, Cheryl. Thank you very much.
Any other questions to staff?
Yeah, I'm going to jump in here and go follow the same line of questioning as Commissioner Fuentes. Cheryl, if we're at 1 for every 1,791 residents, is that our ratio? Did I understand that right, for off-sale licenses? Okay, and our population is somewhere in the vicinity of about 78,000. Is that pretty much right? I know, what's the nearest surrounding city that has similar demographics that we might draw a reference point? Hills, Mission Viejo's, what, 100,000 or so, maybe a little bit higher in there.
In terms of population size, San Clemente is 65,000, Mission Viejo's 95,000, Laguna Niguel is 64,000. Those are the closest in size.
All right, with their number of off-sale establishments, what kind of numbers are we looking at there? Or can we, just out of curiosity?
Off-sale license, Mission Viejo has 49. San Clemente has 38. And was it Laguna Niguel? Was the 64,000 population? They have 35. And for reference, we have Lake Forest has 44.
We have 40 what?
44 off-sale.
44, thank you. Okay, all right, thank you.
Could I have a follow-up question too? So the PCRM process and the limits that we have on those as set by the state, will that change in the near future with the influx of new homes?
It's possible. We have a large number. We have, what, approximately 12,000 population coming in. So, yes, it's very possible that the numbers in an individual census tract may raise, or kind of the overall.
So we might get how many more? 4, 6?
Sure.
It's hard to say.
They update the numbers for ABC after every census. It happens about a year after the census. So they only update those numbers every 10 years.
I heard differently on that from your director of development, who's shaking her head no, that they often that often it's updated more regularly than every 10 years. Sorry.
Yeah,
but
it can be.
If we brought in 12,000 new residents, the likelihood of that number going up is very high.
Yes, it's good luck.
Probably between 4 and 6. Okay, thank you.
All right, I'll chime in with a question. I have a little statement. The PCN legislation explicitly states that the burden of proof is on the applicant, meaning the applicant is obliged to demonstrate to the Planning Commission how public convenience or necessity will be served by the existence of this proposed license. To prove necessity or convenience, a number of potential applicant burdens or obligations have been gleaned from localities using the PCN process across the state. These include some that I'll give you 3. Demonstrate how issuance of license will provide a needed service not currently being met in the community. Identify the special and unusual circumstances present to justify a new retail alcohol outlet when there are already similar alcohol uses existing nearby. Or lastly, prove they cannot operate profitably without an alcohol license. So I guess my first question to staff is, just to confirm that the planning director did not feel the applicant provided a burden of proof for either the convenience or necessity similar to the list I listed above.
Yes, I agree.
Secondly, does staff have any additional criteria the commission can use to determine whether either the convenience or necessity served by the existence of this proposed license?
We only have what was in the appeal letter that you received, which didn't add a whole lot to the record.
Okay. Any other questions?
Is not the public hearing from 4 weeks ago additional information that the staff received?
I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Jennifer, but I think what Jennifer was referring to the information that staff, as in the director, received in the initial application. What the testimony that we all heard on the May 8th meeting was testimony that occurred after the staff determination, right? Because the May 8th meeting was an appeal from that determination. So I think what she was referring to is when they first got the application for PCRN, they had a much smaller amount of testimony. We of course heard subsequently a lot more at the May 8th meeting.
Thank you.
Any other questions to staff?
I'd like to ask the police services group, you indicated in your report that this would only generate a nominal increase in calls for service. I mean, how do you define nominal in your situation? I know what the dictionary version of it is, but I guess I'm curious what your definition is.
Police services does not anticipate a large increase in calls for service with the addition of these PCN licenses. There's already alcohol being served in the area, already sales occurring, and nominal, I can't put a figure on that. We don't see it as impacting staffing levels where we have to increase staffing in the police services to accommodate the nominal increase in calls for service.
Yeah, we've been, frankly, as commissioners, we've received a whole bunch of information from some other individuals in the city that claim that any increase in outlets brings a commensurate increase in crime and violence. Is that anything? Do you have any experience or any information that would give us some insight into that one and how that relates specifically to the city of Lake Forest?
I have not seen that report. What I can tell you from my experience and my knowledge is, yes, alcohol does contribute and is a factor in crime. The levels that it is, the percentages that it is, we're talking crimes from simple thefts, where juveniles run into a store and grab some beer and run out, all the way up to the ultimate of, crimes of passion, homicide, things that happen in bars or whatnot. So alcohol can be a contributing factor because it affects people's judgment, it affects their inhibitions, causes them to make poor decisions. Now, whether that alcohol and that crime can be directly related to where the alcohol was purchased, I don't have any numbers or information on that.
So basically, I guess the other thing I'm interested in, because it's off sale, it means people take it out of the store, presumably they take it home and consume it there. Do you have any experience with the percentage of people that buy it and take it and consume it in their vehicle versus the ones that take it home and do whatever mayhem they're going to do there? Do we see that the number of outlets causes the drunk driving issue to commensurately get worse? Because we're getting information that basically says that there's a direct correlation with that. And to what level that correlation is, I mean, we could probably argue, but what's one of my real concerns that, I feel like part of the job we have to do is to balance the benefit to the store owner of being able to sell alcoholic beverages versus the risk that we place on the community when we allow that to happen. And I guess that's why I was curious that your position seems to be that this is not a game changer in any way in terms of increasing a law enforcement problem within the city.
That's correct. I don't feel it's going to make a large impact as far as calls for service within the city. Reference your comment towards DUIs. We use El Toro and Rockfield as a location. If you have a car stop or calls for service at El Toro and Rockfield and it's a DUI arrest, it doesn't mean that alcohol was purchased at that location. It could have come from anywhere in the county. They're mobile in their vehicle and they drive from numerous places. There's numerous reports and statistics out there of, drinking occurs at bars, at residences, at friends' house, different establishments. Those numbers are all over the place. It doesn't mean that alcohol was provided from that exact location where the DUI occurred. Best analogy I can give you there is the California Highway Patrol makes thousands of arrests on the freeway every year, but no alcohol is sold on the freeway.
Do you often find that when you stop somebody for DUI that they do have alcohol in the vehicle?
I don't have numbers on that. I would say yes, that's people have open containers at the same time in their vehicle while they're driving, and yeah, that occurs.
Thank you very much.
Any more questions, Commissioner Verlaine?
Yeah, I have a question for Mr. Silver. You said at the beginning here that there was a possibility of a motion to reconsider. Did I hear that right?
Yes.
Oh, wait. Does that then mean that if that is made and that's approved, does that mean that this comes back to us all brand new again? Is that what we're talking about here?
My suggestion would be, if the motion to reconsider passes, that the item, my recommendation would be to make a motion to continue the item to, I think, the first meeting in July, because we passed the noticing period for the next meeting, and at which time the public hearing might be reopened, and you might take additional comment at that point in time.
Okay, thank you.
That's if there is a motion to reconsider and if it passes.
Correct. Notwithstanding that, though, I might add the typical, I think, 3-minute comment period still applies tonight. However, the public hearing was closed at the last meeting on this issue.
You're stealing my thunder.
I'm sorry. I'll turn off.
No, go ahead. Go ahead. All right. Well, if there's no other questions to... All right. All right. Go ahead.
I wanted to follow up with Lieutenant
Commissioner
Valentine.
Fuentes.
Thank you. Do you consider Lake Forest to be defined as having high alcohol outlet density, such as Los Angeles, New Orleans?
Well, you rephrase the question?
Well, there's a term, high alcohol outlet density. There are cities that are determined that their outlet density is very high. And Los Angeles and New Orleans would be classified as that. Would you put Lake Forest in that same category?
I do not.
Thank you.
I'm unfamiliar with Los Angeles. I don't drive around that very often. I've never been to New Orleans.
But you've heard the stories.
That's a matter of perception.
So, and then to clarify the question that Commissioner Ludden asked, do you find residents typically sitting in their cars at retail markets drinking beer?
I don't have any statistics on that in front of me. In my experience, when I worked the city from 2000 to 2007, yeah, that does happen.
But it's not prevalent.
Does it happen all the time where it's a large concern? And we find people in their car having intercourse. You find people in their car doing drugs. You find people in the car sleeping in the car. People do all sorts of things in their car. So, yes, people have alcohol in their car.
In the retail market parking lot?
No, as we went through and provided the history for the last year, there were no cases of that in the last year for calls for service at all the addresses provided at those retail markets of people being arrested or cited for open containers in those parking lots.
Thank you.
In that particular area of Lake Forest where this consent store is located, do you get any inordinate number of calls for service in that area? Or is it a more of an active area or a less active area? Maybe that's a better way to put it in terms of police activity.
I would say the west side of the city there, from the freeway to Tribuco, is a more active part of the city. It's just a denser or more dense population, so you have more calls for service in those areas.
But that particular commercial center right there, does that have a particular interest to you in terms of you have to put extra patrols in that area or anything that, does it draw extra attention, I guess, from the police department, I guess is my question.
I wouldn't be able to tell you if that particular market or retail center is draining additional resources. We have officers or deputies assigned to different beats throughout the city. And depending on the calls for service, deputies handle those calls for service within their beat. If there's 3 calls in one beat area, then a deputy would come from another beat to help handle those calls. I don't have that type of information prepared to give you specific on that retail location tonight.
Thank you very much. You've been very helpful.
One more question. In that particular shopping center that we're discussing at Rockfield, are there any other off-sale licenses currently being used in that quadrant?
I can have one. No, there are not.
Thank you.
Are there any within walking distance?
Depends on how far you want to walk.
In the orchard across the street, there are, or kind of kitty corner to it, and in El Toro Square, which is across El Toro as well, there are several.
I don't have the map.
Oh, Hunter Court, I think.
I don't have the map in front of me, but is the Chevron at Bridger not in the same census tract?
Yeah, you're right. On Bridger, Chevron as well.
All right, if there's no other questions from the commission.
Can I make a brief observation? Change screens here, I apologize. As much as I would love to actually see a motion for reconsideration, I'm on the losing side, so I can't bring one. So I will simply present a little bit of data. This is just something to think about as we go forward. I'd like to get it out there now so that it's in your thoughts as we proceed. Under the Business and Professions Code, Section 23817.7, subsection B, the department, this is in reference to, at the May 8th meeting, there were some questions asked about could we impose restrictions, and the answer was no. And while technically correct, there is more to the story, as is often the case, especially with statutes. It says the department may impose, this is the alcohol beverage department, not us, may impose reasonable conditions on a licensee as may be needed in the interest of public health, safety, and welfare regarding signing, training for responsible beverage sales, hours, and mode of sale. I'd like to focus on the last three words there, 4 words, and mode of sale. The things that we were asking about, can we do, can we restrict? Only ABC can actually choose to do that, but I would, if we're going forward as it appears we are, as we voted on May 8th, I would recommend that we at least ask them, please consider the following restrictions based on the city's needs for health and welfare. And it would be those things such as limiting the square footage, limiting single container sales. We don't have that power, but they do.
I want to follow your line of reasoning here. I appreciate that. Since we have no control, how do you propose that we would encourage their exercise of such control?
As best I understand it, all we can do is ask. They can choose to do it or not, but at least we should try.
Okay, so your proposal would be that the city then, in fact, in any correspondence with the ABC, would then make a request of said.
Assuming that we do, in fact, send a letter of PCRN saying, yes, we approve, we find convenience or necessity has been met, we say, and please consider including the following restrictions. And we lay forth the ones that we laid forth and got blown out of the water on at the last meeting.
Okay, thank you.
As stated, we can't make them do it, but we can ask.
Commissioner Fuentes.
So this would be for Matt to follow up with that. Can the Planning Commission ask code enforcement to survey a retail outlet after it has a PCRN? Do we have any kind of legal means to take care of a business that might not be cooperating in the standards that we'd like to see in the city?
Our standards are set forth in the Lake Forest Municipal Code, and there's also state law that governs how businesses have to operate, particularly with respect to alcohol sales, over-serving, serving kids, and so on. There are legal recourses that the city can take in the event that at 99-cent store or any place where alcohol is sold, there are some kind of relating violations. Code enforcement usually is a reactive force, but they can initiate a code enforcement action, and there are legal remedies to enforce the law.
Thank you.
All right, seeing no further questions from the commission, this is normally the time where we open the public hearing. However, as Mr. Silver mentioned, that was closed at the last meeting on this agenda item. Therefore, all comments made by the public will not be a part of the administrative record and doesn't count as testimony that will be considered as part of the commission action tonight. Mr. Silver, would you like to elaborate a little further?
Mr. Chair, looking at how the item has been agendized, and I apologize, I'm going to have to double back on my advice of just a few minutes ago. The item has been agendized. There's an item where staff recommends the commission adopt a planning commission resolution. That is an item that was directed from the last meeting, right? I was directed to bring back a resolution adopting a PCN finding. However, that item is newly agendized here. It's the first time that the consideration of the resolution has been agendized. I know your statement right there was based on something I just said myself. Nonetheless, I would, in light of the resolution being newly agendized, recommend opening the public hearing for purposes of testimony to the resolution, because that is a new item. Does that make sense? Okay. The 3-minute rule still applies, but nonetheless, I think it's a safer bet to allow the public hearing to occur on the resolution since it's been agendized as the public hearing. I apologize for my misstatement earlier.
All right, then. I will open the public hearing. This is a public hearing. As part of the public hearing, the public has the right to voice your opinion or ask questions. I can speak for all of us here on the commission by saying we truly appreciate your questions and comments. To ensure the public hearing runs smoothly in accordance with established procedures, staff and the commission will address applicable comments or questions after everyone has had an opportunity to speak. Limits are 3 minutes per speaker. And I think first on my agenda, or first on my speaker cards, was Mr. Jim Gardner. If you could your name for the record and your city of residence.
Good evening. My name is James Gardner. I live in Lake Forest. I believe you've seen a copy of this graph. You will not see in the history of social sciences a graph that shows a more one-to-one relationship than this graph. This is the graph between serious crime on a per capita basis and alcohol outlet density on a per capita basis. Lake Forest is about in the middle. Anybody who has less density has less serious crime, defined as FBI type 1 serious crime. Everybody who has more density has more crime. You will not see in social science research a higher correlation than you see here. What that tells you, despite Chief Valentine not being aware of it, is that for every outlet you add, you will have more serious crime. It's as simple as that. This is research done here in Orange County. This research duplicates research done all over the United States. So there's really nothing that you can say. If you put 2 more outlets out there, you are asking for more murder, rape, robberies, and car theft in the city. Make no mistake about that. That is your vote. Simple as that. The DUI chart is less impressive. That's about a 0.7 instead of a 1.0 relationship. Leaving that aside for a moment, let's look at Chairman Hamilton's comments about the PCN. Do they need it to be competitive? No. They make a lot of money without selling beer and wine. We all know that. It's not even part of their marketing strategies. 99-cent store does not need to sell beer and wine to be competitive. That's the truth. Are they providing something unusual? Somebody said one-shop stopping. Well, I did research on one-shop stopping. Turns out one-shop stopping does not appeal to very many people at all on a nationwide basis. So instead of looking at the nationwide data, I looked at Lake Forest data. Lake Forest 10% of the people are interested in one-stop shopping, 90%. So one-stop shopping is not of interest to most of the people or even the vast, it's a minority people. Finally, convenience. Every place they propose to sell beer and wine, there are larger retailers, discounters who are selling beer and wine. So what's the convenience? 3 feet away. I think somebody here said there are none in that. There are 5 in that area for El Toro. There are 5 places they can buy, and 3 more across the street. There are 8 places you could walk to. So what's the convenience? They're offering nothing unique. They don't need it to be competitive, and they don't. The one-stop shopping, the special thing that they're going to provide, is something of interest to 10% of the population. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments. Next is Bob Holtzclaw. I could say it a few times, I'll get better practice. If you can just...
My name is Bob Holtzclaw. I'm a resident here of Lake Forest. And I'm opposed to the 99 store selling alcohol also. It seems a little hypocritical. When we're doing it, it's okay for a chain to do this. But just 4 months ago, our own city council just denied a mom and pop store market there to sell alcohol because, well, they use the word saturation. But, but it's okay for a 99-cent store. Is this really for convenience, or are they going to lowball their sales and affect all the other sales in the area? So as to be maybe put some of these people out of business? Are we looking at some sort of a competition here? There's a lot of avenues on here. It's just not necessary. It's not a convenience thing here because there's tons of stores in that area where they can buy alcohol already. Even Bevmo is right not too far away, and we have the Ralphs across the street from there, and there's other liquor stores in the area. Adding another one, I just don't see any advantage of it. But thank you anyway.
Thank you for your comments. Is there anyone else who wants to address the commission? I was going to say, if you could please fill out a speaker card. It looks like you already did. And just state your name and your city of address, please, for the record.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. My name is Steve Bowling. Place of business is at 26023 Jefferson Avenue, Suite D in Marietta, California. And good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to address you. I appreciate some of the comments from the other folks there, and I appreciate your commission going through great lengths to make sure that you guys are making the right decision. And I'm here this evening to share with you a couple of anecdotal things, and then I also wanted to let you know that this evening I did bring with me Al Romero, who is who's an employee of 99-cent only stores. As I told you, I'm a consultant to them, and I don't work for them even though I say we a lot in my presentations. I'm not an employee there. But I brought this evening with me Al Romero, who is the district manager for kind of South Orange County. I think it goes from San Clemente on up into about Santa Ana. The 3 stores in Lake Forest, we're only here tonight for 2, are his stores, as well as a store in San Clemente are his stores. And I brought him this evening because I feel strongly that 99-cent only store is a very, very responsible corporate dispenser of alcoholic beverages, and I think that Al would be able to provide you folks with a little bit of insight into some of our corporate policies and the direction that the company's going, and to possibly add some assurances that we have some stringent standards in place, and that we're not looking to be any kind of public nuisance whatsoever with our small quantities of sales there. I did just a quick little analysis there. We get caught up a lot in the word allowed by ABC. We go by census tracts, and they use the word allowed. The word allowed, I think that some people connotate that as that somebody sat down and said, well, there's this magic number This is what's allowed. You can't exceed that. All it actually really is saying to you is that up to that number, we, the ABC, are allowed to make the finding of PCN without consulting the local jurisdiction. That's actually what the word allowed really means, is that we as ABC are allowed to make a PCN determination without speaking to the local municipality. It's implied that this isn't going to create any kind of problems, and that it serves a public convenience or necessity. So if you kind of keep that a little bit in mind there, and I did a quick little survey of the census tracts that are in the city of Lake Forest, and I think I counted up about 16 of them. I know that some of them bleed into other cities, but I would assume that if you're my town, you drive through a traffic signal and you're in the next town, and 95% of the residents have no idea what town they're in. And I would assume that somewhat similar here. But I looked, and I actually came up with a slightly different number than what Cheryl did. I came up with 42 active licenses. There's one license that's been surrendered that pops up, but it's not technically active. And I know you said 44. I'm not splitting hairs here. I could have miscounted. I literally went onto the ABC website, checked every census tract, and looked to see how many active licenses were, and then I was on my computer screen counting. So I came up with 42. I think she said she came up with 43 or 44. One of them, I think, is a surrendered license. And one of them is actually on a hotel, and it's because it's for their little gift shop. And that the number of allowed in all those census tracts combined is a number of 44. And so, kind of when you're looking at densities and saturations and so on and so forth, that gives you a little bit of perspective that, folks at one end of the town kind of come to where the commercial centers are, even though their census tract doesn't have any because there's no commercially zoned property. So whether that confused things or not, it was just something I kind of wanted to add to it. We certainly support we reviewed the resolution, and we felt like it did reflect accurately what was discussed at the May 8th meeting. And with that, I will turn it over to Mr. Romero, and I am certainly available for any additional questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you for speaking. Next is Al Romero. If you can just restate your name and city of residence.
Sure. My name's Al Romero, residence in San Diego. I've been in the grocery industry 32 years, district manager for 16 years. The reason I'm glad to be up here. I'll let you know pretty much how 99 cents works. Pretty much the 99 cents works is I'm going to be doing a store in San Clemente actually this Saturday. We got the license. How we start and how we train our people is pretty much we get all our cashiers, we get anybody that operates the register, we certify them. First we have a meeting, we show them the laws, what they can do, how they check the IDs, how they pretty much how they approach, what the things they look for. The scan, the POS system also locks up, obvious automatic. Before they can even, if they scans, boom, it locks up, asks for the ID. The cashiers are trained. Also, the cashiers are also have to take certified tests. If they have to pass that, as well as they'll be certified every 3 months. We certify as well in our stores, which I've been hearing the gentleman speak. We do sell beer and wine. We do sell a 6-pack of beer, 12-pack of beer, and we do sell wine. Prices range as same as the Sprouts or the Bonds or across the street from $2.99. I mean, from $2.99, sometimes up to $4.99. The convenience of the customer. Since I've been here in this district, a lot of customers do request it. I mean, it's not like something the gentleman was saying. It's a one-stop shop. It is for some customers because it's a low. We are a 99-cent store. A lot of people do the shopping there. And then I've even heard the community, the customers come up to me and say, when are we getting wine in here? Because they like to do all their shopping, they get their wine, they go, and they're happy. That's pretty much why I'm really hoping that we do get it. I mean, it also helps the 99-cent store bring in more jobs, as we did for the El Toro and the Lake Forest store we just opened. We brought in 60 more jobs into the community. But I'm just letting you know, we have real strict laws. If the cashier does break the law, they will be terminated, up to termination. We do take this seriously. I mean, certification on the cashiers.
Thank you for your comment.
Okay.
for a text and it came through because I wanted to verify something before I made the offer to that. I did verify, and Matt, you can comment whether or not this is correct. It is my understanding that we as the applicant can voluntarily agree to conditions on our license at ABC, and I thought I had mentioned that previously before, but I got verification that we can volunteer conditions, and we certainly would volunteer a condition of no single sales onto our license as ABC, and because it's on the public testimony, and if you're being led to believe that that's what I'm going to do, and if I don't do it, then it is grounds for revocation. So we are voluntarily agreeing to a condition on our ABC license of no single sales.
Single sale of beer.
Of beer and malt liquor products.
So you probably want to single sale the wine.
Where we will single sale wines of 750 milliliters or greater. That's your standard bottle of wine there, and we'll multi-pack. Like if it's wine coolers, it would be sold in manufactured, prepackaged manufactured multi-unit packs. So that is for the record.
Any questions? I want to ask you a question. Would you also consider no refrigeration? Just a question.
Yes, we would volunteer. Our alcohol would be warm storage only.
I noticed in doing an ABC check of the 20-some stores, about 23 or 24 stores you have within a 25-mile range of this location. Looks like 7 of them actually, because they're showing the Lake Forest store at 22631 Lake Forest Drive is having an alcohol license, which it does not, and that's on your website, by the way. Your website says it sells alcohol, but it doesn't. And can you let them know about that?
Which is that?
That's the new one you just opened in Lake Forest. That's the new one.
Did we fill an old space like from a grocery store?
No, that was a Staples store.
Oh, well, they didn't sell those. Oh, okay.
I think it's a mistake on your website.
It probably is. Obviously,
you need to know
we
that
don't.
It does show up that way.
Okay, well, I appreciate that.
It looks like, in doing a look at the ABC website, you had 2 stores in Garden Grove, one on Harbor Boulevard and one in Westminster. In the last few years, I've had the Harbor Boulevard store had 2 suspensions, one of them for 5 days and one of them for 25 days, which were mitigated by a POIC. You have another store in Garden Grove and Westminster that had a 10-day suspension and a 25-day suspension, which there was an $870 fine. One of them, the second one, doesn't show what the fine is, but that was 10 days and 25 days. Again, both satisfied with the fine. One of the 8 stores I noticed just got a license in May of 2014, so it doesn't count in this discussion. So that's 2 stores out of 5 that have had at least 2 violations. I can't tell from the website what the time period was for that or how far back that goes. I suspect that the one on Harbor Boulevard, looks like that license was issued originally in 1984, but I don't know if 99-cent stores owned the store at that time or not. I guess my question is I'm a little concerned after walking through 4 different 99-cent stores, 2 of them were open fairly recently and 2 of them had been open for a while. What you do in terms of your staff to control the operation of the checkout stands and that sort of thing. I noticed in a couple of the stores that I walked into, the unused checkout lines weren't chained or anything else. People could just sort of walk through there. I don't think in most stores that you really like to have that happen because it's a license for people to shoplift. I'm more concerned about that if you're selling alcohol because now it's an easy way for enterprising minors to come in there and pick something up, stick it under their coat, and walk out the door, and hopefully the checker doesn't catch them. What are you willing to do to convince me that you have the right operational stuff in place that if we allow you a license that we're not going to create a bigger problem with minors and other people? The other thing I noticed about the store on El Toro after walking it, I walked it last night about 8:30, there's not a light in front of the store. You do have one thing that I do like to see, is you have a security camera out in front of the store, which you did not see at the other 3 99-cent stores I looked at. These are the types of things, to me, that show me that you're serious about taking care of the community. So I guess I'd like to know what you're going to do at that particular store on El Toro Road to maybe either beef up what's not working. I did notice that the 3 lights that are out in front of the store that are up above the canopy were not lit. All the light that lights up the front of the store is from the inside of the store. That, to me, promotes loitering because that is a dark parking lot. I'm real concerned that, you don't staff the store with a lot of extra people, which I understand. In your particular market, you can't afford to hire a lot of staff because you got to control the overhead. But what are you going to do if you're selling alcohol? Does that change the way you run the store from a store that does not have alcohol? The problem is I haven't been able to see one of your stores that does sell alcohol because they're all quite a ways away. So I guess I'd like to have you to address that question to me as to how you're going to deal with that.
Okay, I'll have
Because I think that probably you do run the stores a little bit different when you sell alcohol and when you don't. I'd like to understand that.
Yes, sir. What we do in the stores that do have alcohol, we have more cameras as well, as also we have more staffed. Like some of the stores that don't have alcohol, they have more cashiers at night. We do not close off the check stands at night. If you go to the other local stores, just because more of for a handicap or a safety issue, we have to stay open. And that is pretty much the rule. They'll fine us if we do put shopping carts or so it's pretty much open for access for in case there's earthquakes or something. So if you go any other store, it's just like that. But what we do have the cameras to help us, and we do also have a lot more employees working and stocking the area. Pretty much eye contact as in any grocery store, and that's pretty much how we supervise. As well as you're saying about the lighting outside, we'll get that corrected. I know that light was burned out. We'll correct that. Obviously, we want more lighting out there. We'll get it corrected.
Al, before you sit down, I just have a question for you. You said that, or maybe it was Steve that said the price of the wine is $2.99 to $4.99.
I think that they range from. I'm not sure the last time it was $2.99, but I've been seeing recently a lot of $3.99 to $4.99. That's pretty much the range. The bottled wines, $7.50.
And you said that compared to?
They compare to the Sprouts. If you go to Sprouts, you do have wines for $3.99 and displays. I've also seen them in Ralph's. So we pretty much same pricing. We're not competing against prices.
Well, now Ralph's back in the fall, and then I think it was Stater's, and then I think it was Vaughn's. You could go and you could, with a coupon that they sent or it was in the paper, if you bought $40 worth of wine, a particular brand, and then you bought $40 worth of groceries, they would give you $40 back as you walked out the store. So they basically gave away their wine. Do you do that sort of?
No, ma'am. We don't do that at all.
So you can get it free at Ralph's, but you got to pay for it at the 99-cent store.
Yes.
Thank you.
Anyone else want to address the commission tonight? If so, please fill out a speaker card. So seeing none, I guess we'll bring it back to the commission. Is there any other additional questions? All right, Commissioner comments.
Actually, I have to back up, sorry. I do have one question to staff. Do we have the date that they originally applied for the PCRN?
September 16th.
So we're at 8 months since then, give or take? Okay, and to be in all honesty, we may be spinning our wheels, because technically after 90 days, if we haven't made a determination, the state can act without us.
Well, I think right now the letter that we have to ABC is a denial. So the determination was originally made, and this is just the appeal of that determination.
Okay, thank you.
So
Good catch.
So could I follow up with a question on that before Commissioner comments? Andrew?
Yeah.
Thank you. And it would be for Matt. I'm hearing talk about possibly making a motion to switch this all up. If we determined 4 weeks ago that the applicant in a public hearing proved public convenience or necessity, how do we unprove that? And what kind of measures would this commission have to take tonight or subsequently to overturn what I thought we already agreed upon, voted upon, and said was the truth?
The commission would have to make and pass a motion to reconsider, and then at which point I would recommend that the item then be a motion be made that the item continue to the July meeting so that we can renotice and agendize. It would be advisable then for the commission to take in additional comment, testimony on for and against whatever people want to present on the PCN issue, and then the commission, using that and all the testimony we heard on May 8th, would then recalculate and come up with its determination at that point. It would be good, be very helpful to have that additional testimony if the commission felt that was necessary.
So how do you say one thing one day and then refute it the next without getting in trouble?
Well,
And what do you have to say to get out of trouble?
I don't know if I would call it trouble per se, but what do you have to say? I don't think there's a magic formula about what needs to be said. However, the commission, of course, at length discussed this issue last month, and the commission would want to, based on any existing or additional evidence, discuss the issue again and see, based on the commission's reasoning, it determines that a different outcome is appropriate based on that motion. I don't think there's any magic word or any special formula. Finding a PCRN affords very substantial discretion to the hearing body, such as yourself. So if a motion to reconsider were made and passed, the commission could find either way. But the commission would want to make sure that it puts forth on the record its basis for those findings. Like tonight, we have a resolution for approval, sets forth, but distilled down all the bases for findings last time. You would want to do that again if you were to find it the opposite.
I have a question for Jennifer. Jennifer, the clock is running or is suspended at this point in time? Or maybe this would be something for you, Mr. Silver. Because this is an appeal, we're not up against a timeline, or we are? I'd just like clarification.
Do you mean the ABC timeline?
That is correct.
I agree with staff that the ABC timeline runs from the date the request is made.
Right.
90 days has passed from then, obviously,
Right.
in September, but the determination's been made within the 90-day period. So we're just simply following the next stages in the appeals. So I don't think the clock is running.
Okay, so we don't. There's no time constraint on us to have to. Yeah. Okay, I wanted to make that statement. I'm the one who made the original motion on this, and quite frankly, I'm glad we're having this discussion because I'm not comfortable with this. And to that end, I'm going to make another motion here. I'm going to make a motion that we reconsider.
Can somebody from the losing side, as a point of order, second that motion? Okay, I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to reconsider. So a yes vote would undo what we did. So let's vote. All in favor? Okay.
We were having commissioner comments and a motion came up. Are we going to discuss it?
Yes, we can discuss it.
Well, I guess I'll go first.
Commissioner Fuentes.
Thank you. You know, I think that Mr. Silva has advised us legally, and I think Lieutenant Valentine has told us that it's really a public safety issue that we don't have to worry about. He and his staff can take care of it. Staff has helped us understand what the PCORM process is, that we are within our, certainly within our limits to issue another one. If we fail to approve this resolution without specific cause, eventually, or clearly outlining specific good reasons why a PCRN should be granted, I think we're sending a message. We're sending a very loud message to other retail outlets like Whole Foods, Trader Joe's, that in addition to being fickle, Lake Forest just says no to good business. And gentlemen, with respect to those of you who had other plans and were going to miss the subsequent meeting to the May 8th meeting, delayed this vote until tonight so that all members could be present and the resolution would stand as decided upon. And I believe this was to circumvent a change of vote. And I don't like the change of vote. I think that we are sending a horrible message to businesses in throughout the state of California that Lake Forest doesn't want you. They're not going to be an open door policy to you. It's a market. It's a market that sells lettuce, fruits, vegetables, plates, napkins, pasta, and it wants to sell wine. And if you're not a believer in the free market, then vote it down. If you believe in the free market, and if you believe that the free market will prevail, and that those who want to go and buy it there will, and those who don't won't, I would be very disappointed and appalled if you change your mind because we courteously changed this meeting for two of you. Thank you.
Just an observation, with all due respect to all three of the colleagues who voted on the side opposite from me on the last one, at least this member, I don't speak for the other member of the body who was appreciative of being postponed to skip a meeting that I couldn't be at. I haven't changed my mind, so I don't feel guilty. And just to address the question, and legitimate question, of kind of the appearance of a, maybe a political black eye, if nothing else, of making a vote and then changing said vote. I think Commissioner Verplank has actually said what, in my opinion, would be the magic words, which is, based on what I've learned since making a decision, I'm not comfortable with it. I mean, what more can you ask? I mean, we're asked to all get up here and vote our conscience and do what we think is best for the city. And it is a legitimate balancing act. I despise any time I'm put in a position of having to tell somebody what they can and can't do. I am very laissez-faire by nature. Let the market decide. But we do have a responsibility to balance that with what we see are legitimate, valid health and welfare considerations. And that's, I think that's all we're doing here tonight. And I appreciate everybody's opinions on both sides, whether or not they agree with me.
I think I might jump in. So I wanted to say thank you to the applicant for coming. You have three businesses in the city. Honestly, I've never been to one here in Lake Forest.
That's not true. I saw you there.
Except this was before the meeting last time. And when you made your presentation, let me finish. And when you made your presentation and all the things that one, and I think Yorba Linda probably 15 years ago. And after you made your presentation about your product offerings, I went and actually ran into Commissioner Fuentes there as I think we were both exiting the store. So I think it's I think you have a good thing going on. So no matter what happens tonight, I want to thank you for coming to our city again for a third time, and wish you continued success. I'm basing my decision tonight on the law, and the defining law is the Alcohol Beverage Control Act. Control is the kind of the defining word. After this first sentence in the California Government Code, it's section 2301, it states, "This division is the exercise of the police powers of the state for the protection of the safety, welfare, health, peace, and morals of the people of the state." It continues on and says, "To promote temperance in the use and consumption of alcoholic beverages." It continues on and says, again, stressing the highest degree of the safety of the state and all of its people. All provisions of this division shall be liberally construed for the accomplishment of these purposes. So it talks about police powers. It's similar to like a traffic law, laws prohibiting DUI, driving while impaired. Doesn't mention anything about maximizing alcohol excise taxes. It's not economic regulation or a limitation or a limitation to free enterprise or capitalism. It speaks to the protection and the safety. That's a quote. And another quote, "the safety of the state and of all its people, and the temperance in the use and consumption of alcoholic beverages." And what's the reason why? It's because there are alcohol-related crimes. I did my own research, and I've got numerous studies in my hand showing a correlation to off-site licenses and increased calls to child protective services and foster placements in California. This is a 2007 study. Increased total property and violent crime rates and homicides in Detroit in a 1997 study. Increased simple and aggravated assaults in a 2013 study of Cincinnati. Increased street crimes in Norfolk, Virginia in a 2012 study. Increased assault and domestic violence in Newark, New Jersey in a 1998 study. And finally, studies in 2004 of Austin and San Antonio census tracts and a 2005 study of Minneapolis neighborhoods finding positive associations between total outlet density and several violent crimes. And this is just a sample of the research I found. I think we've kind of stated the state law doesn't allow additional ABC licenses and census tracts with undue concentration unless a PCRN would be served by issuing a license. I appreciate the report from the sheriff, but the hurdle of having this evidence produced by the applicant in accordance with state law, similar to the PCRN criteria discussed earlier, has not been met in my interpretation. Convenience. I don't imagine the framers of this state law envisioned convenience to mean just crossing the street. You know, there's at least 5 within practically walking distance or a bicycle ride. A logical argument of this would be an outlet on every corner, which obviously would not be allowed in the city. Necessity. I think we asked questions of the last of the applicant, and those revolve around ones that were their special or unique alcohol beverage or unique extended times to sell. I didn't see evidence of this. And there's also an argument, I think the applicant mentioned that tonight, about the total licenses or the total saturation of the city. However, this one side of town has a heavy concentration, and maybe others do not. However, these census tracts, it's a 5 where there should be 3, or allowed 3, and a 7 where there's allowed 2. So a factor of almost 2 to 3 times. These census tracts do not have just barely an undue concentration. So some of the comments or the question I asked earlier about some of the other locales and the potential applicant burdens or obligations that they requested. I think if another applicant were to come before us and be in an area that's either undersaturated or without an undue concentration, or barely undue concentration, I think that's a total different scenario. If there's different offerings that they would offer, I think there's just, the list goes on and on. So I think it would be a different situation if applicants, if another applicant came before us. Each situation is unique. That's all I have.
Do you mind if I add one more quick observation?
Sure.
This is just piggybacking off of something that Commissioner Ludden mentioned. This is purely anecdotal, but it's based on research that I did when looking into, I was following the fight between now council member Adam Nick and the city over his PCN. I was, at that point, just a concerned citizen, and I was kind of looking at what's going on here, what's the process, et cetera. And one of the things that I noticed in the track record, and it based on something Commissioner Ludden just said, reminded me, was that in general, mom and pop licensees from alcohol beverage control do a tremendously good job of monitoring what comes and goes from their stores and who they're selling to, because if they get busted for a violation, they have a choice. They can either pay a crazy fine or lose their ability to sell for 10 or 25 days. They can't afford to do either and stay in business, so they're very careful. Large companies, in the case of the Adam Nick fight, it was 7-Eleven. It wasn't 99-cent stores, so I'm not impugning them here. Just in general, anecdotally, large companies say, oh, we've got this fine, and they write a check and they keep on going on. And that's what it sounded like Commissioner Ludden was saying, so it's just something else to think about as we go forward.
Any other comments? Commissioner Ludden.
I hope I'm not the best for last, but we'll see. I have a couple of, this has been a very difficult situation for me. I probably spent more time in research on this thing than anything else I've done in quite a while. I'm a little bit frustrated because the City of Lake Forest really doesn't have a policy about how we deal with PCNs. It's very broad, it's very liberal. In my opinion, it's very subjective. I will hope at some point in time the City Council changes that. But right now they haven't. And I would, if I did anything tonight, I'd recommend to them that they come back to us with a guideline of how they would like us to deal with PCNs going forward, because we don't have a good policy for that. And no one can convince me that there's ever a necessity to sell alcohol, period. I cannot conceive of any place in any time where you could ever tell me that it's necessary to sell alcohol. I just don't buy it. Convenience? Well, that's a very broad term. I mean, you could argue that certainly in 99 Stores case, convenience, they qualify under that category. Now, it's convenient, and that's what this is about. This whole discussion is about their ability to conveniently sell alcohol. However, to go back to what Commissioner Hamilton had, the study conclusions, you don't have to research this very long. The research evidence is overwhelming that there's a direct relationship between the number of alcohol outlets and the amount of alcohol-related mischief, I'll put it politely, that you get in the community. It's a given. And the fact that we haven't seen a lot of it here doesn't mean that can't change. I think we're very fortunate that maybe because we have really good law enforcement here, we don't see as much of it as some of the other cities do. But you can't ignore the overwhelming amount of evidence that's out there that there is a direct connection between alcohol sales, the quantity of alcohol sales, and the amount of crime and violence that you have in a city. Unfortunately, I think a lot of that violence we don't necessarily see because it doesn't necessarily get reported. It's done at home in private. And I think that to me is a significant thing to think about, because that we may never know what the quantity of that is. I look at this whole PCN process and I kind of marvel that basically what they've done is they've set an arbitrary standard, and then they've turned around and said, okay, Mr. City and the state of California, now we're going to give it back to local control, and now you can decide what you want to do. until you reach the moratorium number. When you hit the moratorium number, then we're saying, yeah, okay, now that's way too many. And that's fine. I think there's a reason for PCN being there. I don't like, to me, the system is cumbersome, it's difficult, it's very difficult. Like us, we have to administer it. I'd like to see it here, but I don't think that's going to happen. I also believe that each of these cases needs to stand on its own. And I think that the store in El Toro was one discussion. The store in Foothill Ranch may be a somewhat different discussion. I don't know if the outcome would be a whole lot different, but I think each one needs to be dealt with individually. I have a real problem with concentration if the stores are too close together, because I think it does stimulate extra marketing efforts that make alcohol even more attractive to purchase. And one of the problems and one of the things that really startled me when I started doing research into this is that the cost of alcohol has systematically gone down year after year for the last years. What you see now, if you look at the various stores in the area that sell alcohol, they all sell it for about the same price because they're all buying it wholesale for about the same price. So the advantage of one store over another in terms of the cost doesn't really exist. I don't think you'll find it a lot different in price at 99-cent stores as you're going to find it at Trader Joe's or at Ralph's or some other market in the area. I do think that 99-cent stores has been somewhat more responsible in handling alcohol because they keep it at the back of the store and they limit the amount of it that they sell. I'd have to admit that I walked into a prominent, 2 or 3 prominent chain grocery stores around here and I find 24 cases of beer stacked up in front of the store with a big sign, "It's for sale. Get it at this bargain price." I don't like that. I think that all that does is it stimulates kids to want to drink more, whether they do it at home, whether they do it because somebody buys it for them outside of a liquor store or a store like 99-cent store or some other kind of store. I think that type of advertising only stimulates the sale of it to people that don't need it. And unfortunately, young people are by far the worst affected by overuse of alcohol, by way higher percentage. Every study categorically discusses that. You can't argue that fact. And that's part of the reason I question the 99-cent store people so carefully about how they deal with selling to minors. I think that is a huge problem. And the problem is that minors grow up and they become adults and then they become alcoholics and then life just goes downhill. Then you find out some of this billions of dollars that we're spending on alcohol-related, cleaning up the alcohol mess. That's where some of it comes from. In the city of Lake Forest, I think right now we don't have a lot of commercial tracts that aren't, shall I say, more than adequately supplied with stores that sell alcohol. There aren't too many places left to go in this city. There's not too many more commercial tracts that will be going in, as my understanding. So we may never reach the maximum at the moratorium limit because we just don't have enough places to go. I think that's an issue we have to think about. On the other hand, to look on the other side of the case, on the behalf of the 99-cent store, I also believe that we have a responsibility to try and help and assist the businesses that are in our city. I mean, 99-cent stores has done something really unusual. And by looking at the number of stores that they have within about 25 miles of here, based on their website, 3 stores in one city is kind of unusual for them. It's very unusual for them. So they have made a commitment to the city of Lake Forest, which is unusual. And I'm not sure why they did that, or if they just got lucky in building leases or something else that made it easier for them to come here maybe than some other place. But I think that they have made a real commitment to be in our community, and I think they do serve some members of our community who have really, really benefited by their store. Now, whether that store needs to sell alcohol or something else, and do I believe that whether they sell alcohol or not is going to make the difference, but whether they're profitable or not, I don't think so. And if it's different, then I think maybe they need to come tell us that, because that would be one of the conditions that you talked about earlier under the law that would qualify them for a PCN. The other problem I have is that we have no track record with 99-cent stores in terms of how they do administer their program. I'm encouraged by the fact that they are willing to commit to a conditions letter, and I would certainly, from my perspective, if I were to vote yes on this resolution, I would absolutely have that conditions letter. That would be one of my requirements to vote yes, from my personal point of view. I think without that, I'm not comfortable that they would necessarily be obligated to own up to whatever promises they make. Because their management's here today, a different management might be here tomorrow, and things could change. So I'm somewhat in the middle on this issue. I would really like to help out 99-cent store. On the other hand, I feel this overwhelming responsibility to protect the public and the city of Lake Forest. So that's kind of where I am. I think if they're absolutely willing to commit to the conditions which they talked about, I'd be willing to look at giving them one liquor license and to see how it goes. Do I want to give them 3? No. I don't want to give them 2 at this point. But that's kind of where I am. I mean, I'm willing to meet them halfway. I'm willing to go the rest of the way. And I guess I'm letting the cat out of the bag on what I do with the second store in Foothill Ranch. But that's kind of where I am. I think if the rest of the commission is not happy to grant a license, I have no problem with that either. I think that we have an interesting situation here, and it may be an opportunity to bring somebody into the city who's not going to sell liquor 24 hours a day and have it refrigerated, as opposed to somebody who comes later that runs a convenience store out of a gas station that's going to sell it refrigerated 24/7. I guess the question we have to ask is, what kind of store do we want? We want one who's basically, by the nature of their sales, potentially is more responsible, or do we want one who we know is not going to be? So, I mean, that's kind of where I am right now. And I'm anxious to listen to what the commissioners have to say on that. Thank you very much.
Well, I would piggyback on some of your comments, Commissioner Liddon. I'm not really excited about having gas service stations sell alcohol, period. I think that's just asking for trouble when you put alcohol and gasoline in the same vehicle. Given a percentage of the population will start to consume the alcohol as the vehicle is consuming the gas as they drive out the driveway. So I concur with that. I have a real opposition to that. And I appreciate your comments in terms of that a business, because I'm business friendly, but as I said a short while ago, I'm not comfortable with where this is tonight, and I would rather we would move it down the road a short distance and readdress it and get it right, because I agree also with your statements, Commissioner Liddon, that we don't have a adequate policy in this city to deal with this. And hopefully what these hearings will do will lead our city council to take the necessary steps to provide that. So let's move in that direction is what I'm feeling.
I'll add one more thing. I concur with the lacking of policy, and it's something that other cities do formulate, and they have criteria, some that I read. So establishing those conditions, I also think that instead of asking the applicant, future applicants, if they could voluntarily add conditions to, their ABC license application if it's approved, I think we should consider implementing a CUP process. That was one of the things that I read in my research, was that's something that you could do to not allow single-use sales or refrigerated by the door, those kind of items that we kind of requested the applicant. I was kind of torn coming to the meeting also, and I thought about this 90-day, and so I almost was considering just allowing the ABC to decide, because if you don't, based on my research, if you don't respond, then within 90 days, then the ABC actually makes the decision. So without that option, I still think it's kind of interesting. because I think it'd be interesting to see what the ABC's opinion is on something like this, and to see what that would help us provide some guidance. And one last thing, not to prolong this meeting any longer than it needs, but yeah, I am too saddened by people who have alcohol issues. Like Commissioner Ludden said, I know someone who's an alcoholic, and they've had 4 DUIs. However sad their life is, I'm trying to differentiate between their individual responsibility that they take, as an alcoholic. I'm trying to help them, but to me, that's their decision. And what I want to do tonight is it only becomes an issue for me when it can affect others. And it's affecting others by the crime and the things that they do. So that was just one thing I wanted to clarify from my vantage point. Any other comments before we vote?
Can I call a question? I think I just did.
All right.
Can you restate the motion?
Commissioner Verplank.
My motion is to reconsider this item and have it be brought back to us. I think it would be the first meeting in July would be the available date. Is that a correct statement?
All right. Anyone else? Sure. Commissioner Ludden.
If we do this reconsideration, what does this do in terms of 99-cent Store's ability to go forward with the 2 PCNs here? Do we just basically restart the clock? Are we penalizing them in any way by doing this reconsideration? In the sense that do we force them into some long extended time period from which they cannot reapply?
If I understand the question correctly, can they reapply if the commission ultimately denies a PCN, say at the July meeting, for example? Do I understand it?
Yes.
They can reapply. I believe my reading of the law is that there are time limits on when they can reapply. I believe it's a year in terms of a PCN. So they would have the opportunity to reapply down the road if it were to be denied by the commission at some point in time. If, for example, the motion for reconsideration passes, you consider the next meeting and you decide to deny it.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Can I ask one more question of Mr. Silver? So if motion carries right now, we see it again on July 10th. On July 10th, we then direct staff to write another resolution, and then after, well, depending on who can be here, 2 weeks later, we might look at that again, and are we going to continue the hearing? So we're asking the 99-cent Store to come to 4, maybe 5 meetings, because what appears that the City of Lake Forest doesn't have an adequate policy for this board to make a decision, which I disagree. I believe we don't have a policy, but we are the policy makers here, and we've been charged with that responsibility. And until City Council determines that they want to change that this is our job. So I guess that was a long-winded question, but how long will this go on?
That's a question I can't really answer because some of it depends on what happens with this motion, for example, right here. As I understand it, the motion put forth by Commissioner Verplank is to continue. It's a motion for reconsideration and to continue the item to this July meeting, for example. At the next meeting, if the commission reconsiders the motion and nonetheless decides to find a PCRN, you have a resolution before you, and you would at that time as well. You can instruct me to bring back that resolution. You could also instruct staff to bring a resolution in the alternative as well. That does happen in planning commissions where they instruct staff to bring back a resolution to approve, a resolution to deny, whatever the issue is. That resolution would contain findings based on what's already in the record. It would be difficult to guess what will be coming up in the record. And then we could always amend it.
Thank you.
I have a question for you, Mr. Silver. An alternative to this would be simply, this is before us to either approve or disapprove. Is that correct?
The resolution?
That's correct.
Correct.
So if this were to fail, what happens?
The May 8th meeting, the Planning Commission properly made a motion, defined a PCRN, seconded the motion, and passed the motion.
Right.
Agreed to. If this resolution is intended, it has various intentions to it, but if the resolution fails tonight, and mind you, we have a standing reconsideration motion right now that would need to be voted on, but if there's a motion made to adopt the resolution that fails, then I believe the decision has been made. That we're not reconsidering anything about the resolution right now. We're reconsidering a decision that's been made already at the May 8th meeting.
Okay, I wanted to be clear on that. I will let my motion stand.
So are we ready to vote then?
I have a question coming. So, after this, can we do another motion, or is this it on motions for this item? Because in essence, what I would want to do is to not delay this further, is to try to get another motion, or maybe to amend this motion and come back with all the comments that have been made, so that we have both an approval motion and a denial motion at the next meeting. Because extending it again for almost like starting all over again, because we'd have two more meetings after that.
If Commissioner Verplank were to amend his motion and that were to be seconded and passed, you could instruct staff to do that. Mind you, if we come back with two competing resolutions at that meeting, you could also amend those resolutions if need be. Say there's new testimony at those meetings that is not reflected in those resolutions.
Well, if I had known that in the public hearing and in our discussion that we were going to be revising a new resolution, then I might have had more to say. But the public hearing is closed.
I'm not sure I understand the question.
Well, you're saying that they can direct staff by changing the motion to put together a resolution that would show that the applicant has not proven that he's worthy of a PCRN, correct?
Correct.
So if that were part of the motion tonight, or excuse me, part of the discussion tonight, I mean, it just came up, it might have prompted different comments from residents, it might have prompted different comments from commissioners. It's off the table. And now you're putting it on the table without a public hearing, and I might have a problem with that.
Hypothetically, I guess anything's hypothetically possible, first. But secondly, I stand by my recommendation from the first meeting, which was make a determination, and ideally the motion directs staff to come back with the resolution that reflects that determination. That's my same recommendation here, is that if this motion for reconsideration passes and a different result is reached at the next meeting, then staff should be directed to come back with a resolution that reflects that. If a different, that is my recommendation. I'm simply trying to accommodate the Commission's request that we try not to elongate the process and have another meeting after that. It's the Commission's prerogative. I mean, at the next meeting, public hearing will be held. Folks can comment on anything that's been said here. They will certainly have, about a month notice to do that. So I serve at the pleasure of the city. So if you want staff to come back with 2 competing resolutions, we can try that. If not, we can follow the process I've recommended.
My thoughts on this are that if we ask if we vote on a motion that says we'd like to reconsider the previous decision, and it passes with an instruction to come back at the next meeting with competing resolutions based on all of the, because I think there's been plenty of pro and plenty of con from which you can draw, probably more than you would like. I don't think it. I mean, I think that Commissioner Fuentes' concerns are valid, but I think that they are addressed by the process, and by that I mean that report and those competing motions are going to be agendized. They're going to be made public. People will have time to review them and come in and public comments, assuming that it goes forward tonight with that instruction, with the ability to say, I'm looking at your pro motion and I'm looking at your pro resolution and I'm looking at your con resolution, and I think you missed X and Y and Z, and here's what else you need to know to be able to pick one. And so I don't think it hurts anybody. I think it does streamline the process, and notice-wise and fairness-wise, I think it still accomplishes what we need.
Well, and even one more question is that the agenda item actually says appeal. I mean, everyone can read it. It says appeal of the director. Was that different than the agenda item that we had a month ago? So if that's the case, then I'm not an attorney, but we have 2 in the room. What if we were to continue the item again and come back with a motion to deny or to uphold the denial?
A motion has already been made at the last meeting to find a PC or N. So in order to revisit the substance of that issue, the Commission would need to make and pass a motion to reconsider.
Yes, and could we amend that motion then to say we want to continue the meeting, almost similar to the motion we did last time? We're going to reconsider, continue the item, and recommend upholding the planning director's decision of denial.
There are a lot of substantive issues packed into that motion such that I think a yes or no vote could be difficult because they could compete with each other. I would recommend, if this is what you're inclined to do, to make a motion for reconsideration. If that doesn't pass, we're where we are anyway. If it does pass, then a separate motion then to continue the item to the July 10th meeting and re-agendize. I will note, perhaps to address Commissioner Fuentes' concern, that the reason we're asking for the July 10th meeting is so that staff can renotice that meeting. So to the extent anybody would like to comment on these competing resolutions or however you'd like to proceed, the item will be renoticed entirely for that meeting.
If we don't continue the item?
No matter what, staff is going to be renoticing the item, regardless.
Okay.
Right.
So I could either make or amend my motion, or someone could make a friendly amendment that would include the directive to staff to come back with competing resolutions so that on the next agendized meeting, this matter can be settled. Is that what I'm understanding?
Personally, I would make the first motion on the reconsideration issue.
Make that separate.
Right.
And then make a second motion to direct staff to come back with competing competing resolutions to either uphold or deny. Is that what I'm understanding? So that when we come back in July, the applicant is clearly certain that there's going to be one of two choices that we will make at that time.
I think the second motion is, assuming reconsideration passes,
Right.
is to continue the item to the July 10th meeting.
Just straight continue it without direction to staff regarding...
I'm sorry, if you would like to direct staff to come back with competing resolutions, you can do that as well as part of that second motion.
No, I'm just trying to facilitate here so that we can have the applicant at least know that on the 10th of July, if this is where we're going to end up going, that he's going to get his answer.
At that next meeting, you could always reconsider. So I'm not sure how much weight that
Well,
will carry.
Yeah, okay. Well, all right. Let's get on with the vote.
All right, any other comments? Let's vote. All in favor? Four, 1. Commissioner Fuentes is the one. All right.
So now that we have...
Do you want to do it again? Agenda item number 5. Oh, no, sorry. Sorry.
Before we move off the agenda, now that we've reopened it, or opted to reconsider it, I would move that we post, or continue rather, that to the July 10th hearing and instruct staff to come back to that meeting with competing motions. One, to uphold the director's decision based on the evidence and findings presented, and one, overturning the director's decision, again based on the findings on record. And I think that's it.
And again, we do not want to continue the hearing. We've reconsidered the motion, which had closed it, so it's still open. We do not want to close it now.
At the next meeting, there's going to be a public hearing. It's going to be renoticed, re-agendized, so there's going to be a public hearing. I think your motion to continue to the 7/10/14 meeting and for 2 competing resolutions is an accurate motion.
I'll second it.
Okay, do we need to, the public hearing had been opened on this item, so now with this, do we need to close the public hearing along with this motion? Is that understanding?
I'm saying you can. I think your traditional practice...
Okay, so just for...
You should follow your traditional practice.
For purposes of a clean record, I would like to amend my motion to include closing the public hearing on tonight's agenda.
Is there a re-second?
I'll agree to that.
Any discussion? All in favor? Passes unanimously. All right, now, do you want to do it again? Agenda item number 5.
Make a motion for reconsideration on agenda item number 5.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Okay, all in favor? Passes 4-1. Commissioner Fuentes is the one. You know what? We missed. Does anyone want to request to speak on this agenda item? We have speakers. So should we go back and say we want to undo our vote?
Move to strike the previous motion.
We already voted on it. I just wanted to know if you wanted a brief staff report. Or you want to skip that part?
There was such haste to create a motion.
The prior staff report that
Do we need to actually formally undo our vote? I think that's a good idea.
Motion. I think that's. I think the vote is essentially null, but it's, I guess, a good idea to rescind that motion just for formality purposes.
Yeah, I'll move to rescind and strike the previous motion from the record.
I'll second it.
All right, let's vote. Yes. All right. Do we have a staff report?
Agenda item number 5 is the appeal of the Director of Development Services denial of a determination of public convenience or necessity for the 99-cent only store located on Town Center Drive. As directed at the May 8th meeting, staff has brought back a resolution overturning the director's determination. That concludes staff's brief presentation.
Any questions from the commission and staff? All right, I'll open the public hearing. We have a speaker similar to the comments in the past. You don't want to speak. All right. Does anyone else want to speak on this agenda item?
Good evening, Chairman and fellow commissioners. My name is
Steve
Steve Rawlings.
I was going to say state your name and city of residence.
I get it. Steve Rawlings, Marietta, California, here on behalf of the, I don't know what we are, the applicant, appellant, 99-cent only stores. Again, I appreciate the opportunity to come before you, and I do appreciate the fact that you're taking great care of mulling this over. I understand. I'm not intimately familiar with the community. I have been here a few times now. I understand that the circumstances revolving this store and its location, by indications of the Planning Commission and others that I've spoken to, that this store takes on a bit of a different character, and that the community that it's located in within Lake Forest here, it takes on a little bit of a different character. And with that said, I don't want to necessarily tie the two stores together. I mean, obviously it's run by the same organization, but from what I was hearing was that this store has a little difference to it. And in light of what took place here previously, I would encourage that this store does serve a different population, and that it does serve a public convenience and necessity, as we discussed at the last hearing. I would say that certainly being able to sell an additional product certainly does allow us to continue to be profitable. I know a lot of people made a big deal about profits. Most private sector companies are in it to make a profit, and being able to sell that product ensures us that we'll continue to be operating. This company did invest, hundreds upon, well, probably millions of dollars by the time you consider all three stores and the amount of tenant improvements that they've placed into your community here, and that being able to sell an added product to their product line is very, very important to their product line, and it does allow them to continue to grow and invest in this particular community. I think that part of the investment into this community is that they thought it was business friendly, and that we would be allowed by the fact that we are a good operator to be able to add to our product line to make us more competitive in the environment, and it is critical to our economic status. That's why we're going through the entire state of California and being able to and trying to license our stores for that, is to be able to sustain profitability, and not being able to do that and compete in this particular very, very cutthroat environment that we're involved in is critical. We don't work on huge margins. We don't work on Microsoft margins or Amazon.com margins or Facebook margins. We work on itty bitty margins. I don't know how many of you folks have ever been in the retail grocery business, but on a tube of toothpaste, you're not making much money on it. and too many things go wrong. You get shrinkage in your store. You get a fall off in customer sales. Weather kills you. I mean, pay attention to the news reports out there. Boy, you get a spell of really bad weather, on the East Coast around Christmas season, and it kills these retailers. And you're talking about 2 or 3 days. And the same is true as is in the grocery store business. For some reason, you get one hiccup in business, you get your air conditioner to go out for 2 or 3 days. You get your refrigeration units to go down. The power fails. Recently, we had it in my community there, and I felt bad for the folks at Ralph's. All their ice cream was melting. They were throwing it away. And you think, oh, well, whatever. But these guys are stocking hundreds upon hundreds of thousands of dollars in inventory. And if it's not rolling day in and day out, they're not surviving. You've got Ralph's store that is actively closing stores down. So is Albertsons. This is a cutthroat competitive market. And the ability to be able to add a product line that our customers are demanding to continue the revenue and to be able to make those profit margins that are allowing us to keep stores open is hypercritical to this business. You can ask anybody in the grocery business. The margins are ridiculously tiny. I don't know what kind of businesses that you guys are in, but I don't know how they make it on those margins. They're single-digit margins. And very, very, very thin, and you've got, competition always advertising, about they're running this special, and they're running this special, and they're running this special, and it literally, it's all in an attempt to get an influx in that particular weekend because they're trying to bring people in the store because they've got to stay competitive, and if they're not turning the inventory over, they're not making the profits. And so, we talk about it, and they've been in business for a lot of years, and they made profits, and it's certainly nothing that anybody should be ashamed of, although I kind of feel like some people feel as if we should be ashamed that we made some profits, but those profits are tiny. If you look at the margin, the profits versus the number of sales, it's absolutely tiny, the margins are. And the addition of beer and wine is very, very integral to the sustainability of the 99-cent only chain and at every single store. We wouldn't be going through a comprehensive effort to add that product line if everything was okay. And so, with that, I think that this store is, as has been indicated to me, has some different circumstances. I would certainly ask that you folks would consider, upholding your findings that you made back on May the 8th and approve this resolution. I've read the resolution. It does reflect what I thought that you folks had done. I will be honest, I didn't know that we were going to have a second public hearing on that, but it is what it is. And with that, I'm here to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next up is Mr.
Jim Gardner, good evening, and thank you. In their last filing, they made net income $22,175,000. That's their net income. God bless them. It's America. But don't tell me they're not making profits. That's a profit. They report, and they're proud to report, that they have the highest in the dollar store industry of their average sales. Long before selling beer and wine, they open one store, they open a second store, they open a third store. They're doing fine. They don't need to sell beer and wine. Yes, they'd like to sell beer and wine because they'd like to make more profits. I don't fault them for that. But let's not hear that they're in trouble, they don't have profits, etc., etc. That's just nonsense. I like 99-cent stores. My granddaughter loves it. My wife loves it. I like it. It's nothing against a 99-cent store. Yeah, these two stores are different. This one is even more over-concentrated. The other one is 3 and 5. This is 2 to 7. This is even worse. Yes, these stores are different. There are more mom-and-pop stores in the area of this store than there are in the other store. And what is 99-cent store going to do? As Bob pointed out, they're going to come in, they're going to sell the alcohol at cost, and they're going to harm the mom-and-pop stores. And there are more of them around the town center than there are in El Toro. Yes, they are different. And I hadn't intended to come up here and talk, but I was prompted to by the previous speaker. And so long as I'm up here, I'd like to compliment you. Your detective work was terrific. 2 out of 5 of their stores have been suspended. When I heard that, I would never vote them a license, tell you honestly. That just tells me these people are not doing responsible management of the liquor, and I commend you for having sought that out. I'm embarrassed that I didn't find that myself in your research, too. I'd like to compliment those of you who did your research on having done the research. And for Mrs. Fuentes, when you get new information, it's okay to change your mind. That's okay. We call that a sound mind. That's what that is. New information has come up. You provided new information. You provided new information. Lots of new information came up in this meeting. So if you're changing your minds based on new information, that's a good thing to do. Thank you very much, and I apologize for taking up even more of your time.
No apology necessary. Thank you for your comments. Any other people, residents, any member of the public want to comment? If you can just fill out a speaker request form.
Yeah,
okay.
I've got one up there. I just want to reiterate another thing, too, is that just recently, as I said before, you denied a mom-and-pop store. Are all those little mom-and-pop grocery stores in that area now would be okay for them to apply for a liquor license, beer and wine? Why could we deny one person and let another person go on just because they're a chain and they run on a low margin? Well, so does all those little mom and pop grocery stores that you just got finished denying not too long ago. I've heard one person say that, well, hey, if it's legal, we should be able to sell it. You know, anything goes. Well, we just got rid of all those marijuana clinics, and so I guess they're okay now to come back into the city and sell. We had massage parlors here up and down here, and we finally got rid of those. I guess they're okay now because they're legal. You know, the thing is that you're running into a situation where it's a downhill run here, and you know, where does it stop? As far as alcoholism, my gosh, years ago when I was a little kid, my parents got into a car accident by a drunk driver. I slammed into the side of the car. His car bounced off of my parents' car, hit a telephone pole, and he was dead instantly. My dad, his chest was broken in. My mom had a scar from here all the way to the back of her head, and both of them were hospitalized. Almost became an orphan. And matter of fact, he had no skid marks. He just kept on barreling on. I don't even know if he was conscious. A friend of mine here in Lake Forest, he just died, used to tell me about when he was a real bad alcoholic. He says the only reason he put seatbelts on is because it helped him stay up straight in the steering wheel. And these people exist right here in this city. And why add on more than what we have already? It's just, you know, I see no reason for it, because all of a sudden you're going to find someone from the city council that says, hey, this sounds okay. We'll give this person a break. And then we're going to be right back where we started from. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Any other speakers? All right, we'll bring it back to the. Any other questions of staff?
I would like to make a motion that we accept the resolution as presented.
Well, before we get, can we? All right, we have a motion. Any seconds?
I'll second it for discussion.
All right, we have a motion, a second. Does anyone want to comment?
Mr. Chair, to confirm, is that a motion to, that's a motion to adopt the resolution as presented? Okay, thank you.
I think we have an interesting decision to make as a planning commission. I agree wholeheartedly with Commissioner Fuentes' discussion that we have a job to do here to make a decision, and I think we ought to do it. Now, whether we make it now or we make it on July the 10th, we're going to have to make a decision one way or the other. And that's okay. Now, I don't think between now and July the 10th the City Council is going to tell us anything one way or the other about what they want. So I don't expect we're going to hear from that either. So this one, we're on our own. I do think by voting for the reconsideration, we've allowed the 99-cent store people another opportunity to present their case. And the whole reason for this denial in the first place was because we didn't feel they presented a good enough case to override the denial. And that was the director's decision, was they didn't make a compelling enough case. So I think that's kind of where we are. I think it's a decision, but I do believe that 99-cent stores is entitled to one more opportunity to come in and present their case. They should be entitled to bring in whoever they want. I think also the rest of the community has their option to bring in more people. I'm really discouraged by the fact that we've had so few people in this community that have gotten interested in this issue. And to me, that's really discouraging. We've had 3 or 4 people who have consistently come in here and voiced their opinion about this, and the rest of the people are not doing anything. And I find that very frustrating. And I guess it's down to if they're not interested, then they'll get whatever decision I decide to make, because then it's up to me. So that's one of my real concerns. I would hope that when we notice it this time, that we get more people here voicing what they want in the community, and it's not just us figuring it out for them. I'm done.
Commissioner Fuentes.
Well, Tom, thank you. I think that you don't see a lot of people here tonight because I think they saw the resolution, they agreed with the resolution, and they thought we were doing the right thing.
Any other comments?
And I think by delaying it, we'll find out who's right.
All right, just to restate the motion was to
Adopt the resolution as presented.
adopt the resolution as presented. All right, let's vote. All in favor?
Sorry, just for point of order, shouldn't we also include in the motion public hearing? Because if it does pass, then we would be done.
I would. Thank you. I would close the public hearing.
I'll second that.
All right, all in favor? The motion fails. 4-1. I just wanted to add for the record the same comments that I made the previous agenda item, and obviously the change would being that this one is different, and that it was 7 with a permitted or allowed of 2 quantity.
The only thing I would add is, and I think it was actually in the applicant's own words on the previous agenda item, but hopefully I'm not misstating. If I am, I apologize. But by his count, and I think by Cheryl's count, there was a 1 or 2 item difference or licensee difference. But I believe he had said that overall, if you look at the city as a whole, as opposed to the individual census tracts, we're right at the number we should be, and that I think it demonstrates the theory that the applicant rightfully stated, that it compensates for the fact that some districts are going to be commercial only with very few residents, and some census tracts are going to be residents only with no commercial. And the theory behind it is that on an average across the city we'll have the number we should. But if his numbers are correct, that by the definition of undue concentration looked at on a citywide status, we're right where we should be according to the statute, then I still don't see any reason to add to it. So that would be the only thing I would add.
Commissioner Flannery.
Can I ask you a question? So if we're right where we're supposed to be, why do we have the ability to grant 19 more with 6 more coming? And what is the purpose of the PCRN law if it's not for boards like ourselves to look and say we have, is it, Cheryl, 5 tracks that have none in them?
I think that is a correct number, and I would agree with you wholeheartedly that that's the purpose of the PCRN process. But I would agree with Commissioner Hamilton's earlier comments that I don't think the burden has been met to justify going beyond.
Your comment that it is at capacity do you still agree with that?
Well,
I mean, that's different than what Andrew said.
Well, what I'm saying is, as a city, if the numbers that were presented to us, and I haven't researched them specifically on that scale, I looked at it by tract, but I believe he's correct. I don't have any reason to disbelieve him. If, as a city, we're right at where the statute would say, this is the point from here forward where you need to show PCRN, then I would think, in this particular case, that burden has not been met. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, that's different than what I heard, so I'm glad you clarified that.
Any other comments from the Commission?
Yes, I have a couple of comments. I don't think this is the end of the road for 99-cent stores as far as Foothill Ranch is concerned. I think they could probably come back in about a year and they could reapply for another PCN, if I understand correctly. And we could be addressing this issue again a year from now. A year from now, we'll probably have enough population that maybe that basis of determination will change. I think it probably will. I think the real issue we're going to deal with forward is what we do with the other store, but I think in terms of this store, I think the time is just not right for this one to have a liquor license. I'm really concerned having 3 99-cent stores in a city like Forest that all have a liquor license at the same time. I think that's too many. And looking at the way their liquor licenses are distributed in other cities around this county, I would not want to be the one that has so many in our city right now. When they get their first one, I guess we'll decide in the next couple of weeks. I think eventually they'll get one, but I don't know that they'll ever get all 3, if you want my honest opinion. And based on it right now, I don't think, based on what I'm hearing here out of this group, is that we're not willing to get very far above the standard where we are now. And that's okay. But I don't want 99-cent stores to think that the door is not open. At the time when the determination is different, I think it makes sense that our director has taken the stance that she has, that we're at the right point where we should be, because the population changes, that can change. I think the only other issue we're going to have to really decide going forward is what we do with the store on El Toro Road, because if there is something unique there, I would hope that in the time that we're giving 99-cent stores that they can come in and demonstrate that. I think if they can demonstrate it, I think from my point of view, I'm happy to take another look at it. But I think that, I don't want to discourage them that there's no road open going forward anywhere here, because I don't think that's necessarily true. So I think, but I do think at this point in time, Foothill Ranch just doesn't make sense to me. We don't know what they're going to do, what they're going to apply for the store on Lake Forest Drive. I think that's still an open question. We probably can't discuss that because we don't have anything in front of us. But I do think that they're a worthy member of the community. I think we need to do what we can to help and support them, but I also believe that we have an obligation not to let the number of licenses get out of hand either and fall down the slippery slope that we heard about from Bob tonight. I think that can happen. I think it's happened in the past. So that's kind of where I am. I don't want 99-cent stores to feel discouraged that we don't have any concern for them at all, because I really do.
I echo those comments. I just had a quick question. Did they apply the same time? So the 90-day has expired too? Okay.
The only other thing I would, I don't know the economic viability, but we've all talked on several occasions in this process about our feelings on the open market and free enterprise, et cetera, and one option that, it's not our place to decide, but even if we say no on both of these PCRNs and the alcohol board says, okay, but the city doesn't want to give you a license, so we're not going to give you a license, they're still more than capable of purchasing a license on the open market. I don't know if there's any for sale. I'm not in that marketplace, but I know that's what Adam Nick was forced to do. I know that others in the past have had the same thing. They were denied a PCN, so they went out and found another way to do it. And that's, in my opinion, that's what the free market is intended to do. If there is a need and it is justified, they'll find a way to get it done.
Well, the other side of that coin is, too, because we've denied it, they can now take it to the city council and appeal it. So, there's still other options open. It's not stopping with us.
Yeah, it raises a good question. Since we voted on this one to deny it, to not resolution, does that change their appeal rights? Can they appeal?
I think their appeal time runs from this action. It's not
for both agenda items?
If I'm not mistaken, based on your own comments earlier, and I just want to make sure I'm understanding, by saying no to the resolution, our previous decision would still stand. It would just require a new drafting of a resolution that we can say, yes, this meets what was done on that day. I think we still need it, if my understanding of where we're at is correct. And I'm only one vote, but I would think we need to bring a motion to reconsider so that we can reopen it for discussion at the July 10th meeting, and I would so move at this time.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second?
I'm not sure I understand the motion.
Yeah.
Is
one needed?
Actually, I think it is needed, but I also realize I can't bring it, so.
Okay, is one needed?
Is one, if you wish to reconsider.
No, we took a vote, and the vote is that we.
Right.
Okay, so where does that leave this item? Is it now denied?
You've denied the you've denied the resolution.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So the director's denial stands on this location.
Yes, unless you were to do something similar to what you did last time.
Well, we just did something. We affirmed her denial.
There you go.
All right. Okay.
Excuse me for 1 second. I think pardon me.
Okay.
No. My advice on the last item, maybe I misheard your question, Commissioner Plank, and I apologize. My advice on the last item was, I guess this item, is if you deny the resolution is a recitation of what your findings were last time, then there was already a motion made, seconded, and passed, finding a PCRN. That means that we simply do not have a resolution, but I believe that motion was already made. So absent a motion to reconsider that passes, that motion stands. It just doesn't have a resolution that you've adopted. That's our belief.
So in essence, what we've done is we have just gone ahead and granted them the liquor license at Foothill Ranch.
The ABC issues the liquor license.
I understand.
Based on your finding of
but we've basically said we're recommending that to the ABC to issue the license. Is that what we just did?
Yeah. Yes, I think essentially by virtue of not adopting a resolution, your last decision still stands. But I would request for a moment so I can look into this and give you advice with certainty.
Okay, great.
That the chair perhaps grant me a few-minute recess.
Thank you.
Yeah, let's take a 5-minute recess. All right, we're back. We're back. And you're on Peggy, right? Yes. Okay. All right, so Mr. Silver, I think you were going to come back and mention something.
Thank you for the recess. I think the question was, if we've denied the resolution, which has occurred, that motion failed, can we still make a motion to reconsider? Yes, I believe so, if that was the commission's intention.
I think, sorry, for my own edification, I think the question may have been, do we need to?
Oh, I don't think there's a need to reconsider, but if you would like to reconsider, you may. I'm not advocating either one.
All right. Then the reason we would want to reconsider if we do is what?
Well, if you were, I would imagine you would be making a motion to reconsider the PCRN determination, not the resolution issue you just voted on.
Exactly. So the door is open for this commission to, in fact, do like we did with the first one, to make a motion for reconsideration if we choose to do so.
Yes.
And if we choose not to do so, where does that leave us?
And I believe that leaves you with the PCRN finding at the last meeting standing. You found a PCRN, you simply would not have a resolution adopted at this meeting.
Thank you. But we would need to adopt that resolution at some other meeting, or it would be by default adopted?
The resolution's failed. There's no resolution has been adopted.
Okay.
I don't think you necessarily need to. As I mentioned last time, I think it's helpful to do so. It may help, if that were your choice, to perhaps, if you want us to bring back a resolution to help me understand maybe what was wrong with the resolution, you can proceed by minute order here, minute action. Those are alternatives if you do not wish to reconsider.
Okay, so barring any action, where do we stand? I want to make sure I understand and make it clear for the public as well.
If we shut down shop and call it quits right now, then the PCRN finding from last time stands, and that PCRN finding was in the affirmative to find a PCRN.
And that, so the city would then notify the ABC that that is the situation.
Absent a timely appeal.
Thank you very much.
Make a motion for reconsideration.
Of the PCRN finding?
That's correct.
Thank you.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion?
I'm sorry, can you pull a second?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, please proceed.
Any discussion? Okay, all in favor? Passes 4-1.
I'd like to move that we continue the hearing on this matter to the July 10th hearing and instruct the staff to prepare competing resolutions, one affirming the director's decision, one overturning the director's decision for our consideration at that meeting, and to close the public hearing of this agenda item at this time.
Second.
Is this the same, just a question, we have a motion and a second. Is this the same thing that we did the last time? Okay, everyone's, okay. Yeah, first and second, do we have any discussion?
Well, I would just like to say that I am disappointed that my fellow commissioners, in my opinion, have voted against the free market, and they are, with their 2 motions ago, do not appear to be believers in good free business. Milton Friedman said, many people want the government to protect the consumer. A much more urgent problem is to protect the consumer from the government. And I think that's what we have here tonight. We have government coming in and telling private businesses what they can and cannot do when it's been suggested by staff, by attorneys, by our police department, that it's a good business and it's a good decision, and I would just like that to be recorded.
All right. Well, I'd like to say that I am pro-business, I'm pro-consumer, I am for the free market, and I'm disappointed it wasn't unanimous because it talks about in this division as an exercise of police powers for the protection of the safety. And I'm disappointed that we have a unanimous vote on that. Any other comments?
Part of the reason I voted for the reconsideration is I would like, number one, I agree that I'm very much pro-business. I very much would like to see every business in the city get a fair opportunity to function and to do what they need to do to make a decent profit. Again, like I said before, I have to balance that against the safety of the citizens of the city of Lake Forest. I also believe that the whole basis of this PCN denial was the fact that 99-cent stores couldn't demonstrate that they had an absolute need for a petition for necessity or convenience. If the profit margin is that big a deal, then I think maybe you need to go back and come back and make another presentation. Maybe it's a little more compelling than what you've done in the past. I believe by doing what we're doing, we're going to give you one more shot, at coming back and telling us something that's compelling that may change our mind. I do think the store in El Toro is unique, and I think that one, if I were to vote for any of them right now, I would probably vote for that one. The one in Foothill Ranch, I think there's not enough population right now to do anything else in that area, and I'll be very blunt about that. I don't know what you're going to do about the other store that we can't talk about, but I think that the case you presented isn't quite compelling enough. It's close, but it's not there. So I think, as was mentioned earlier, part of the criteria of the PCN is that the burden is on you, 99-cent store, now to convince us that you have a compelling argument. And you've taken it a long ways, but it's not quite there. So I want you to have the opportunity to come do it again and to bring whatever resources you need to be as convincing as you can, and then we'll take another, as fair and objective look at it as we can. You understand that what we have to do, we have to balance the safety of the community against your ability to make a profit. So I really want to thank you for coming. I appreciate your patience in dealing with this. This is the most awkward thing I've ever been involved in. And I hope that we can resolve it quick. And I'm certainly committed to resolving on July the 10th, one way or the other, and you can move forward with whatever you have to do. So I don't want to be painted as anti-business, because I'm really not. But this one is a very difficult decision, and there's just not enough on the scale right now to tip it. So good luck.
I'd echo those comments too. Any other discussion? All right, all in favor? To continue. Let's read back the motion. You can change if you want to.
Did you want us to repeat the motion?
Yeah, can we repeat the motion and clear up there?
Continue to July 10th and direct staff to prepare 2 resolutions, one affirming the director's denial and one overturning the director's denial, and close the public hearing.
All right. Let's vote on that. All right. 4-1. Motion passes. We are on to agenda item number 6.
Agenda item number 6 is an appeal of the Director of Development Services' denial of a determination of public convenience or necessity for the mobile gas station located at 21721 Lake Forest Drive. On this matter, we have had a request by the applicant to continue to August 28th.
I'll move to approve.
I'll second.
We have a motion.
The motion is to approve the continuance, correct?
Okay.
Yes.
Move to approve the continuance and close the public hearing.
I will second that.
You know, before we do that, let's make sure that no one from the public wants to discuss this item. So let's just open the public hearing. Anyone from the public want to discuss this? All right, there's none, so we'll bring it back to the commission.
Then I'll restate my motion, and that is then move staff's recommendation here with request to continue this item till the August 28th meeting and close the public hearing.
I will restate my second.
All right, we have a motion and second. All those in favor? Unanimous. We've already done agenda item 7, so any comments from the city attorney? Either city attorney. Any director's comments? I went out of order.
May I make a comment?
Sure.
So on a personal note, my daughter became a doctor today. PhD, Michelle Fuentes, in political theory. So I just wanted to send out shouts to Dr. Michelle.
Congratulations.
And if all goes as planned, she'll be paying her cell phone bill by August.
Sure, I'll go next. I want to thank the members of the commission for dealing with this after I got back from my vacation. It was a fantastic trip. I got a whole different level of exposure to a whole different culture when it comes to alcohol, being in Louisiana for a week, especially in rural, small town Louisiana. It's just a whole different world. But it's family, so what can I say? Other than that, congratulations to Commissioner Fuentes and her daughter. And for anybody interested in a really good time, I would invite you to come out to Heroes Field, or Heroes Park, for the baseball fields on Saturday, starting at 9 a.m. is closing ceremonies for Little League. And the Division A kids, which are the step between coach pitch and full-on live kid pitch, will be showcased between 11 and 3 with their first ever games on the big field with loudspeakers and announcers and everything. So it should be a lot of fun. There will be approximately 20 different Lake Forest businesses that are Little League sponsors will be there. So see everybody at SAC. Thank you. And actually, before I yield, there's nobody here tonight from Parks and Rec or the operations management divisions of the city, but if we could relay to them that I realize that they're staging equipment for the closure of the fields. We practiced at Foothill Ranch Community Park tonight. They've already fenced off the outfields, but they left the gap because the fields are still in use through the weekend by the dugouts. But they staged the fencing that they're going to put there, and I had to pick up a 55 or 60-pound piece of fencing off of a 3-year-old because it fell over on him. Thankfully, he was fine, but it just wasn't a good idea. So, in the future, if they want to stage them, they need to secure them because children play.
Any other comments?
I just appreciate the attitude and the tenor of the members of this commission tonight. This has been a really difficult discussion, and I think that everybody's really worked well. Now, we don't always agree on everything. This is one time where we don't, but it's just been really nice that everybody respects each other, and I think that that's that's a really good thing. It makes me feel really good to be here. I really appreciate the effort that the staff has put in on this, and especially our city attorney. He's had a rough night. And but I appreciate his efforts and the fact he answered my emails when I had questions earlier in the week, and that was just really helpful. I just appreciate everything everybody's done, and hopefully we will continue to do the right things here, and I think we will.
Yeah, I would echo those comments. This is not an easy thing, and obviously everyone here in the public can see that we've been wrestling with this, and the idea is to try to get it right, even if as best we can. And the fact that we do, being as a 10-year member of this board and seeing that there's a lot of new people here and how we are cohesively working together is really it's an impressive thing, and it's a very enjoyable thing. And okay, so we don't always agree. The good thing is that we can agree to disagree, and that's the good thing. And we probably put Matt through the ringer a little bit here tonight, but thanks for bearing with us. And we appreciate it, and we'll try to take it easy on you in the future that we deal with this. It should be narrowed down. There are no doubt a few fathers in this room, and there are a few children that have fathers, and so Father's Day is this Sunday, and that I hope and pray that that's a good thing, and that we can all just remember, whether we have fathers that are living or not, should have great memories. And so I wish those. Oh, just happy Father's Day. I'm just going to throw it out there.
I'll back cleanup based on some Little League comment. Real quick, I appreciate everyone's comments. I appreciate the staff reports and the staff's help, the city attorney, the police commissioner, and congratulations to Dr. Michelle Fuentes, and happy Father's Day. We're adjourned.